Hello and welcome to the Game Week 2 team selection and preview with a quick look back at Game Week 1. I can't believe that the one preseason when I'm really talking about the likes of no Bruno or no Salah has come back, but I'm going to still prove to you why that point that I made is still important. But first of all, let's look at the Game Week 1 score and look towards Game Week 2. So let's get that elephant out of the room. So preseason, I talked about the idea and the plan of spreading the money and going without either Bruno or without Mo Salah because of effective ownership. Now, a lot of you are going to sit there and say, ha, I'm sat here with, 80 points, or 90 points, 100 points. What a fantastic game week. I've had one idiot this guy is. And when you looked at your score, you thought, wow, what a whacking big, great game week I've just had. And I'm not even in the top million. That was the point I was trying to suggest. Now, I've got 84 points, which isn't actually that bad. I know my rank is currently 1.7 million. And if you've got Bruno and Salah, the chances are yours are higher. But I want you to really look at your team and just understand just how many points. 54 points if you captained Mo Salah from 2 players, which is just not sustainable. And we're looking at rank, right? You try and get the highest rank. You cannot rely on Bruno Fernandes, who gets an XG of just over 1 to get you a hat-trick every game week. And it's the same thing with Mo Salah. You can't expect to get 34 points every game week, which is why, yes, for this first game week, it is a big loss for me. But if you got higher than if you got 90 points, this is game week 1. If you got 90 points in any other game week, a single game week with no chips played, you'd think you've had an absolute banger of a game week. That didn't even get you top 1 million in game week 1 this season because of effective ownership and having Bruno and Salah. And it's only going to get worse because they've both banged in game week 1. Their ownership is going to skyrocket, which is why I am still not yet. I mean, if it gets to game week 3 and 4 and I'm really, really suffering behind in rank, then yes, I will probably bring both of them in. But for now, I'm sticking with the plan. Heung-min Son did really well when he came in. He's got 10 points from me there. Barnes and Grealish let me down a little bit, but I am expecting more from them there. So we'll have a quick look now at game week 1, and 84 points is usually a fantastic game week. And I've even got far too many blankers in my side, let alone people who've got Bruno and Salah. So Martinez, 2 points. Villa looked really off the boil. I didn't think, maybe I'm disrespecting Watford too much. Maybe I should have expected more from the side. I mean, they were in the Premier League the season before last, but we expect a little bit more from Villa. I'm still going to keep hold of him. Good fixtures or bad, I think he's a top goalkeeper. I'd only suggest changing him on a wild card if you want to save that extra 1 million. Going up to my weak links on my defense, and I'm going to, I think that's incredibly harsh because when I say weak links, that's Luke Shaw and Kufal, right? Luke Shaw, I think, had a very good game. United run out 5-1 winners. He's making chances. He comes away with 1 point. Kufal as well was the same. He was creating chances up there in terms of stats. I'm not going to talk too much about stats because we've had 1 game week, but they did well. To get 1 point is a little bit unlucky. But then my 2 Liverpool boys, my most expensive defender at 7.5 million and the cheapest possible defender you can get at 4 million, both getting me a return there. And actually, Timiskas has actually gone up by 0.1. He's probably going to be in my side for maybe the next 1 or 2 weeks, just before Robertson comes back, because I'm sure Robertson strolls back into that side because I thought he started the game very well to Timiskas against Norwich, but towards the end of the game, some silly mistakes. He gets a slap from Milner, I think it was, and then he gets a little bit of a shouting from Van Dijk. So I think he knows that he gave away some big opportunities at the end for Norwich. I'm feeling very lucky. Alisson made a fantastic double save towards the end of the game. Really lucky, I think, to come away with a double clean sheet there. Jack Grealish, I said I was going to take a punt a week early and I was going to start with him. I thought he was going to start against Spurs. And he did, which is fantastic. But what is not fantastic is the fact I didn't get any returns. I thought Spurs, I believe there's a stat out there that Pep has lost the last 4 away games at Spurs to 3 different managers, and that's something that I miss. A stat like that is usually something I wouldn't use to suggest future premonitions, right? Just because he's lost 4 times at Spurs doesn't mean it's going to be 5 or 6 or 7 times, which brings me on to my captaincy later and why I'm still going to be back in Mo Salah. Speaking of Mo Salah, 34 points. When we all saw that Bruno masterclass against Leeds, where he's gone and got 3 goals and 3 bonus, if you would have told me I would have walked away with 17 points or 34 doubled if he's your captain, I'd have snapped your hand off to try and catch up, because that Bruno game week 1 score is just absolutely incredible. And then to have that pressure on your captain to just do something to try and to get back at Bruno, and I think to only be 6 points behind Bruno Fernandes captaincy is incredible. And of course, most people captained, and effective ownership was incredible. I think it was over 160, 170% effective ownership for Salah. So if you didn't captain Bruno and you didn't captain Salah this game week, chances are you might have had a tough one. But remember, the average game week score, I think it was around 64 or 62. 69 was the average game week score in total. Now we've got just over 7 million FPL managers, so I don't think it's you don't lose FPL in game week 1. So when people are going to be shouting about Bruno and Salah, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to play the game my own way. Okay, Harvey Barnes, we knew before the game he was not quite ready. Brendan Rodgers came out himself and said he's going to need a few weeks. I just thought he was going to really hit the ground running. Again, another player I'm going to stick with for at least the next 2 game weeks, because he's got West Ham now. And at 7 million, I don't want to drop to a 6.5. I can't quite go up to a 7.5 punt on someone like Greenwood. I don't have any money in the bank, but I still think he can come good. West Ham let chances and goals against Newcastle. Why can't they against Leicester? And then they've got Norwich the game week after that. And if I bench him for Man City in game week 4, he then plays Brighton, Burnley and Palace after that. And I do think he's important at Leicester side. And for 7 million, I still think he can turn into a bargain. Speaking of a bargain, 10 million, Heung-min Son, I thought he was absolutely fantastic against City. Now, City is the perfect team for Spurs. I think this is why they beat them at Spurs every time, because City want to go an attack and Spurs want to counter. But not just counter. I thought everything about Heung-min Son's game. I even have him, and I was watching that and thinking, I'm more scared of Heung-min Son right now than I was at Bruno. Bruno took his goals. It was something like 4 shots and 3 goals. But every time I'm watching Spurs and every time I'm watching Heung-min Son, I'm just thinking, wow, what a player he is. No Harry Kane, and he's just not, if not better without Harry Kane. But then when Harry Kane's back in that side, you've got that Kane-Son double up. So with or without Harry Kane, I think for 10 million, 10 points, Heung-min Son, absolutely fantastic. And then speaking of fantastic, I made a horrible pun saying AI, the smart attack, and well, 20 points from my 2 forwards there. A for Antonio, I for Ings. I'm not going to lie, guys, a 97th minute penalty for Danny Ings to get me a goal plus bonus is pretty jammy, but in a sense it's not jammy because we knew Danny Ings at Aston Villa would potentially get us some points for the first 3 game weeks and beyond, but specifically for the first 3 game weeks. I am very tempted to go to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and pre-season I was banging the drum about Richarlison and people saying he's gone to Copa America, he's gone to the Olympics, and I said, Richarlison could be the one. Let's have a look at how I'm going to line up for game week 2. So perhaps unsurprisingly, guys, game week 2, I'm not going to make any transfers. I think if you do take hits or transfers in game week 1 going into game week 2, I think that's fine. Maybe people will say, oh, you didn't plan properly, or you didn't do this right. But no, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to attack a certain fixture, go for it. I just personally hope for a plan that if I've got 11 players and I've got a decent bench, so unfortunately I had Veltman out for the last game because of COVID, but I don't believe he has it. He's in isolation, so that's why I missed that game. So unless you have any desperate moves to make, I do think it's a good idea to carry a transfer. Now, if you want to attack that Man City against Norwich game, which is why I started the season with Grealish, because I think carrying a free transfer and always trying to keep that extra transfer in your pocket and going into each game with 2 free transfers, I think is a very valuable tool to keep in your arsenal. Something that I've said all preseason, 5 at the back. I want to touch back on that. You can see I'm a 3-5-2. The reason why I changed towards a 4-4-2 at the start of the season is my team allows me now, my structure allows me to play 5-3-2, 4-4-2, and 3-5-2. These are the 3 top formations, in my opinion, with the players that connect with those formations. But interestingly, I spent a lot of preseason banging the drum of 5 at the back, the safest and smartest way to start successfully for FPL this season. What was the top player in FPL this game week 1, top player? The formation was a 5-4-1. 5 at the back was the top scorer. No chips or anything like that for this game week. So just wanted to throw that out there. That I know my big Bruno and no Salah situation. A lot of people have been questioning that, but I did suggest the likes of DCL and Richarlison double up, and I did talk about things like five at the back. And I'm sorry, I'm still so adamant that I know that they've both banged Salah and Bruno. I do understand that. But my point is still valid that so many people have them. You're not going to go anywhere. You're not even in the top million with 90 points. I just think that is absolutely mind-blowing. Anyway, let's get back to the team that's coming out for me in Game Week 2. Unless something changes, like an injury or a COVID problem or anything like that, this is how I'm looking to line up. 3-5-2. Martinez in net. Big capital letters is they're at home. Small letters means that they're away. Okay, so Newcastle for Martinez. Yep, solid. We did plan for this going into the start of the season. Tsimikas, Trent, double up at home to Burnley, back in front of the Anfield faithful. Hopefully that'll cheer them on. It is the early kickoff, and I'll talk about that when I come to captaincy. Luke Shaw away at Southampton. Look, year on year, I have actually suggested that Southampton could face relegation because year on year, they sell players and then they just suddenly grasp people out of nowhere to replace those players. They've just been there was always that old joke of Southampton selling their players to Liverpool and things like that. But unfortunately, they've not replaced them. They've lost Yannick Vestergaard, who's their big man at the back, right? But they've lost their big goal scorer in Danny Ings, and they've not done anything. They've not really replaced him with anyone of note. And I think that's going to be huge. So I'm going into this game week again absolutely terrified of not having a Manchester United attack. And not just no Bruno, but if Greenwood starts again, if Cavani's back in the fold, if Martial gets a run out, if Dan James is playing, I'm thinking that this, unless Southampton sort themselves out, they're going to be in real trouble. So if you do have Bruno and Salah and you're thinking about that captaincy, I think it's a real tight call. I'm glad I'm kind of not in that situation of captaincy because that would be a real difficult decision to make in my opinion. Going into our midfield then, Jack Grealish at home to Norwich. I brought him in early because I wanted him for this fixture. Maybe he was going to start game week 1. That was the punt I took. It did pay off that he played. It didn't pay off that he got me anything. But with Gundogan possibly out with a shoulder problem and Kevin De Bruyne getting thrown back into the mix. Remember, he'd just been doing partial training sessions. I think it was 4 or 5 days ago when Pep had a press conference. And he was supposed to not be back till about game week 3. Next news, he's still on the bench against Spurs. And then he's on in the 79th minute because they need him. So can you imagine Kevin De Bruyne, by the way, fantastic 2.5% differential. If you are going bold and you've got Bruno and Salah and you're not going to captain one of those two players, I would potentially swap that to Kevin De Bruyne. So if you're going to captain Salah, Bruno to KDB. If you're going to captain Bruno, then Salah to KDB. That is a hugely bold move, by the way. I'm going to put that out there. But 2.5% ownership for Kevin De Bruyne at home to Norwich. I think he's going to play. Hopefully, Grealish is going to be there as well. Rafinha off the bench onto the pitch against Everton at home. First time for years in front of the Leeds fans. Full crowd. I think it's going to be absolutely buzzing. They did get slapped about a bit about United last week, but I think that the atmosphere is going to be bouncing. Rafinha, I think he's going to play up for it. We all know he's got potential. I always said, and this is why I benched Rafinha last week, and this is why a lot of people out there who had Luke Ayling, even though he scored a goal, you probably had him on your benches as well, because we weren't looking at game week 1, we were looking at game week 2 and beyond, and that's exactly why he's back in the side. Barnes against West Ham. West Ham looked good against Newcastle, but I think Leicester looked completely solid against Wolves. More to come from this 7 million man. Son against Wolves away. Again, Wolves apparently really like to attack. Counters could be there, but not just counter-attacking. On paper player comparison, you got to say that Spurs should be the better team there, but again, I'm still going to back the South Korean man. And then up front, we've got Antonio at home to Leicester, which isn't easy, but the XG was off the scale for West Ham. I thought they were fantastic in the second half against Newcastle. Newcastle and Leicester are a completely different kettle of fish. I do understand that, but West Ham looked real attacking. Antonio himself was right at the top of the charts for things like XG and shots and chances. It's just a shame he missed a penalty because he's probably getting hooked off penalties now. And then we have Danny Ings against Newcastle. Villa's going to want to turn that around. 2 late-ish goals against Watford. He can't go around losing to Watford and then lose to Newcastle. That's going to cause a lot of problems, but FPL managers, we've booked these Villa players in for the first 3 game weeks, and I think it would be a little bit, I don't want to say quite knee-jerk. If you want to go to, like I said, I had potentially thought of going Ings to Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison. I think that is a solid move. But when you've got Newcastle at home, I think it would be a little bit too much to sell just yet. So let's just have a quick captaincy chat then. For those of you who, I'm sure a lot of you out there, have both Bruno and Salah. People are going to say against Salah first, a superstitious one, don't back the early kickoff, because if he blanks, you've got the rest of the game week to sit there and think, oh no, Bruno's going to punish me, Son's going to punish me, KDB's going to punish me, or whatever. And people might go against Bruno Fernandes because, well, maybe they think Southampton are going to sort themselves out. Southampton are at home, so they've got that backup of the supporters behind them. Truthfully, if I had Bruno and Salah, I'd still back Mo Salah for this one. At the end of the day, he is basically the forward for Liverpool, whereas Bruno, yes, he's on penalties, but so is Salah. Yes, he's on free kicks. He's in great form. He's just scored 3 goals, but I always just back the player who is supposed to be sort of the forward. And they're at home, and being back in front of the Kop, I think it's going to be a huge thing. And Burnley losing their first. Now, Burnley do have a good record against Liverpool, and they are usually defensively sound. You've got Sean Dyche, who's been there a while. Basically the spine and structure of their team, they've gelled, they've been together for a long time, and I do think they'll make it more difficult. So I don't feel any jealousy towards any captaincy decision this week, and that's why I took myself out of the equation. My money's elsewhere. My captaincy is on Mo Salah. But if you've got both of them, it's a really, really tough call. I think, and like I said before, I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because I can see both of them doing well, which will be fine for you. I can see one of them blanking and one of them doing well, and that's the problem when you've got both of them. Such high ownership. You've got to hope one pulls through rather than just having one of them and spreading the money around. I would massively be tempted for Bruno Fernandes. I genuinely would. I just think a home game against Burnley, despite Southampton's looking a real shambles, they've got the supporters behind them. I don't know how much that's going to affect United. It's a real tough call. Spin a coin. That's how tight I think that one is. In terms of being a differential captaincy pick, I think Heung-min Son against Wolves, if you want to really go out there and try and get Pep Roulette right. But I think we can agree, when we watched the Spurs City game, I don't think City were quite on it. They've just lost the Community Shield final. They've just lost against Spurs. They're lacking with goals. They're begging for a new forward, essentially. So I would definitely put Son ahead of Man City players. So the Bruno Salah captaincy is neck and neck. I think you can't make a wrong call on that one. I don't think you can. If I'm emotionless, if I'm looking at stats, I would probably pick Bruno Fernandes as that captain. But if you pick Salah and Bruno bangs, or if you pick Bruno and Salah bangs, I don't think you've made a wrong decision. It is absolutely, it's inch tight. Differential captaincy pick, I'd say Heung-min Son, and then following that, I think my fourth and so on choices would be a Man City player. So I am still aiming to do one video and one stream every week, and the streams are usually Friday lunchtime 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. starting UK time. Unfortunately, I don't think that there will be one this week because I have to go to a hospital to check on a spinal tumor that I have. Everything should be fine. I don't think it's as serious as it sounds, but just to let you guys know, there probably will be no live stream. Check and follow my Twitter at FPL Hall for more information on that. If you did like today's video, maybe leave a like and subscribe just down there, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Have a good game week, guys. Good luck, and as always, have a good one.